Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington. Thank you so much for joining us. This could be the night that both Joe Biden and Donald Trump clinch their party's nominations. Polls in Georgia closed just moments ago. Mississippi, they close at the bottom of the hour. We're not going to hear about Washington State or Hawaii until later tonight, but we're going to bring you all those results as they trickle in. But first, the collapse of the great Biden cover-up. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, Special Counsel Robert Hur's report, released on February 8th, painted a disturbing portrait of a mentally confused and forgetful Joe Biden. Democrats cried foul at the time.
It's flatly wrong. It is inappropriate. It is gratuitous.
Gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate.
Gratuitous and inappropriate criticisms of the president.
I talk to President Biden, regularly. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years.
In response, Republicans and the Angle, we urge the DOJ to release the entire transcript of Biden's 5-hour interview that occurred over 2 days with the special counsel's office. Let Americans see if Hur's characterization of Biden as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory was accurate. And today, before Mr. Hur's testimony on Capitol Hill began, the transcript was finally released. Now, it doesn't just confirm what we already knew about Biden's dishonesty about the classified documents in his garage and his debilitated mental state. It's worse than we even thought. Now, recall how the Democrats went nuts. They were slamming Mr. Hur for supposedly asking President Biden about his son's death. How dare you? And noting in the report that he didn't remember when his own son, Beau, died. Well, Biden himself responded as well with manufactured outrage.
How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business.
Yeah, very dramatic. But looking at the transcript, we find, in fact, Mr. Hur did not raise Beau Biden's death at all. President Biden did. Mr. Hur asked President Biden about where he kept work-related papers after he left the vice presidency. Biden asked if it was in 2017 or 2018, and Ned said, remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. Then he rambled on about how the party decided Hillary would be better in 2016, but he hadn't ruled out that down the road. And then he said, what was happening, though? What month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30th? Well, two of his aides added the year, saying 2015. Then Biden was asked, was it 2015 he died? Again, his aide jumped in and said it was May of 2015. Now, reading this, my first thought is Dr. Jill Biden should be ashamed of herself, putting her husband and the country through this. Ashamed. Second thought, Democrats in the media attacking the messenger, Special Counsel Hur, thinking, oh, everyone's going to believe Biden's fine. Mr. Hur's the problem. They should also be ashamed of themselves for their role in this cover-up.
He's better than he's ever been, intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
Really? Even the generally pro-Biden Axios noted Biden's repeated mental lapses during the special counsel's interviews. When did I announce for president in 2019? If it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? In 2009, am I still vice president? And then he asked, Trump gets elected in November of 2017? Well, of course, it was November 2016. And Axios then notes twice on the same day, Biden struggled to find the words for fax machine. Now, ignore the Democrats' feigned bravado and their desperate attempt to deflect from what we know to be the facts about Biden's conduct and his diminishing mental state. Here's the truth. In holding classified documents in unsecure locations across decades, Joe Biden was in violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1924. But as we know, Mr. Hur exercised his prosecutorial discretion and chose not to prosecute Biden because he thought it unlikely that a jury of his peers would vote unanimously to convict him. Now, you can debate that or dispute that, but there it is. But the key fact here is Biden himself was never exonerated in this report, despite the Democrats' myriad attempts today to claim otherwise.
President Biden acted responsibly, cooperated completely, and the decision to decline criminal charges was relatively straightforward. The Hur report represents the complete and total exoneration of President Biden.
The special counsel exonerates President Biden.
So this lengthy, expensive, and independent investigation resulted in a complete exoneration of President Joe Biden.
Mr. Hur,
I'm going to continue with you exonerated
a conviction.
I know
I
that
did
the
not
term
exonerate him.
willful
That word does not appear in
retention
the
has a...
report, Congresswoman.
Mr. Hur, it's my time.
Mr. Hur, it's my time. I love how they just talk over him when he's the guy who did the examination. He's the guy who sat down with Biden. He said he did not exonerate him. And Jayapal's sitting there going, oh, yes, you did. Darrell Issa picked up on all of this and reemphasized it.
Did you reach a conclusion that this man was outright innocent?
That conclusion is not reflected in my report, sir.
And I just want to make sure the record is complete in that because I think it's extremely important. You did not reach an idea that he had committed no wrong. You reached a conclusion that you would not prevail at trial and therefore did not take it forward. Is that correct?
Correct, Congressman.
He did not exonerate Joe Biden. But Democrats, all day long, just pretended that they didn't hear what the man actually said. Now, for its part, the White House responded today by saying in part that the transcript offers a more nuanced, I love that word, nuanced view of Biden during the 5 hours of the interview. Nuanced? Well, they're getting really creative at least. Now, let me boil this all down for you. The first question, did Biden willfully retain classified documents? The answer is an unequivocal yes, he did. This conduct goes back 40 years to his Senate days. Now, one part of the original report references a discussion between Biden and his ghostwriter, Mark Zwanitzer. Zwanitzer recalled Biden said to him that he needed to be careful because he was worried that some of his notebook entries could be classified. Okay. Remember, a lot of the other interview tapes just disappeared. But there's a mountain of evidence that indicated that Biden knew he possessed classified material and knew generally where the documents were stored in his garage and elsewhere. And the truth is, Democrats, not a single Democrat, cares. All their lectures about our national security secrets jeopardized with Trump and Mar-a-Lago, they don't believe any of that. It's all a farce. They never cared. Just like they didn't care about Hillary's private email server being vulnerable or her destroyed emails. Didn't care about that either. They're simply not worried about what happens to America or preserving norms, even democracy, laws. Forget about it. This is all a way to hold on to power with an iron fist. That's what they care about. Now, the second question raised by Hur's initial report, is Biden mentally fit to be president? That's a lot of you are asking. That was also answered in the transcript. The answer most definitely is no. Again, the Democrats claimed initially that it was all false. Biden's so smart, he's so sharp, better than ever. They implied that Mr. Hur himself was just another partisan hack. The real truth is, all the main players in Washington know what is real and what is not. They know what Biden is like behind closed doors, and it ain't pretty. They struggle to get him to stay focused, to make even minor decisions, and they don't think the rest of us should know anything about this. The only way, and I mean the only way, we can get the unvarnished truth is when Biden is allowed by his handlers to go off script. And then he flounders, and then he stumbles. And we also get truth when we actually have a real transcript of just Biden and a lawyer asking him questions for 5 hours over 2 days. Everything else that you see Everything else that you watch involving Biden and cameras is staged. Spend time in a memory care unit or a rest home, as I have with my ailing parents and relatives, and then you walk around, you ask residents detailed questions about their lives. God bless them all. And you'll know what it's like to be Robert Hur last fall speaking with Joe Biden. All too often, the answers are confused and muddled, but you give them credit for trying. The powers that be do not support Biden because of his brain power, because he has it all together. They support Joe Biden because they've decided that Biden is their best chance to stay in power in order to boss the rest of us around for another 4 years. And that is the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.